Greetings and welcome back to room 303 and our talks with Walt, as we are calling our readings through the deathbed edition of Walt Whitman's Leaves of Grass. We're in the Calamus section, and we now come to a little poem called City of Orgies. And the title alone, as you can imagine, is going to create a whole lot of controversy. This is one of the more controversial poems of Whitman's Leaves of Grass. We should point out, this is a tribute poem to the city of Manhattan. We know that Whitman loved New York. We've seen this already a couple of times in earlier sets of lines, and we now turn to this text. Our assumptions are that you've been with us at learnstrong.net. Down the left-hand side, our Talks with Walt list there, and you've worked from the inscriptions all the way up and including trickle drops, which we just worked with. Our Nortons will tell us in terms of background information that we'll want to compare this poem with the Drum Taps poem, City of Ships, what we'll get to later, also celebrating Manhattan, but with a different emphasis. In the manuscript, the name of the city is given originally. The poem originally, Calamus number 18, has remained unchanged since it took its title in 1867. Now, this is one of those poems that we're going to enjoin that not or nor kind of construction. You're going to see 4 of each of those. So we're going to want to pay attention to that one. I just want to begin, though, before we even begin to read this poem, by reminding you of A Song of Myself, passage number 24. So let's go there for just a second, and I want to remind you of the ways in which there's some echoing that will happen here that I hope you can maybe remember. Do you remember the opening lines of passage 24 of Song of Myself? Walt Whitman, a cosmos of Manhattan, the sun. Turbulent, fleshy, sensual, eating, drinking, and breeding. No sentimentalists, no stander above men and women or apart from them, no more modest than immodest. That set of lines will echo for us powerfully in City of Orgies. Let's read it. City of orgies, walks and joys, city whom that I have lived and sung in your midst will one day make you illustrious. Not the pageants of you, nor your shifting tableaus, your spectacles repay me. Not the interminable rows of your houses, nor the ships at the wharves, nor the processions in the streets, nor the bright windows with goods in them, nor to converse with learned persons, or bear my share in the soiree or feast. Not those. But as I pass, O Manhattan, your frequent and swift flash of eyes, offering me love, offering response to mine own, these repay me. Lovers, continual lovers, only repay me. Now, there are some readers of this poem that will see it as a celebration of one-night kind of sexual encounters or one-night stands, and there's clearly a reading of that, and certainly this poem is controversial for that idea. That is to say, most often Whitman seems to celebrate monogamy and seems to celebrate some kind of long-term relationship and love, and in this poem he seems to suggest that maybe he loves the city for reasons that are, very quickly gained and lost in terms of encounters. I'll leave it up to you to see how you want to read this. Notice we'll begin, though, with Manhattan, the city. Notice he'll call it the City of Orgies. We'll have this word used one more time in native moments. I share the indulgent orgies of young men, right? This will be one of only a few times the word gets used in all of Leaves of Grass. It was obviously a controversial word when it was used, no question. City of whom that I have lived and sung. Obviously singing is always central to his description, especially of the city in your midst, will one day make you illustrious. Now think about this for a moment. In Calamus, we've been working with poems that are predominantly over-related to nature. That is to say, outside of the urbane, right? Outside of the city. And notice here, we've got a poem that's going to celebrate the idea of love available in the city. But notice he's going to tell us what it is that he loves about the city. And he'll begin by telling us what it is not. Now, I think that Whitman learned this idea from Shakespeare, especially his study of the sonnets. Like, for example, in Sonnet 116, let me not to the marriage of true minds have been impediments. Love is not love which alters when an alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. Oh no, it's an ever fixed mark. So you've got this game that's being played. Let me tell you what it's not, and then I'll tell you what it is. So we'll start again with this not, nor stuff, right? He says, here's what I don't love about the city. which is fascinating because elsewhere in Leaves of Grass, he'll celebrate almost every one of the things that he says he doesn't love about the city. He says, before he gets there though, he says, "City whom I have lived and sung in your midst will one day make you illustrious." In other words, Whitman somehow knew, we'll have more to say about this when we do Brooklyn Ferry, crossing Brooklyn Ferry, but Whitman somehow knew that New York would embrace him, and because he was embracing New York. He somehow saw that great city long before it was the great city that it would someday become, right? He knew it. Just like he knew that America was going to be the greatest country in the history of countries, he knew that New York City would be the greatest city in the history of cities. And certainly many of us argue that it is, right? But what is it that he doesn't? He doesn't love the city because of what? Well, pageants, not your shifting tableaus, that is to say all the pictures, right? Your spectacles. None of those repay me. We'll come back to this repay me at the end of this poem, right? Not the interminable rows of your houses already. Of course, New York was, and Manhattan was a city of all that construction, right? Nor the ships at the wharves, nor the processions in the streets, nor the bright windows with goods in them ever related to finance, right? Nor to converse with learned persons. It was already a city of the educated, right? Or bear my share in the soiree or feast. In other words, it isn't the parties per se that are in the city, nor those, but as I pass, O Manhattan, and again this takes us back to Song of Myself, passage 24, right? Your frequent and swift flash of eyes offering me love. Now, any number of people have pointed out that this flashing eyes and the swift and flashing eyes will immediately make one begin to think about streetwalkers or people in the street who are there available for any kind of encounter, sexual or otherwise. Offering, notice, is used twice here, which is fascinating because offering has the tendency to make one think about finances, but notice he bypassed that with windows with goods, bright windows with goods, right? In other words, offering response to my own. And then you have the dash. These, he will say, repay me. In other words, we're coming back to it. Lovers, continual lovers, which makes one begin to kind of think that, oh, so in other words, he's talking about encounters with more than one kind of person. Obviously, this is going to be disturbing, certainly in the time in which it was published. These only, and he comes back to it for the third time, repay me. In other words, what I love about the city the most is the people that are there with whom I can engage with some act of love. Now again, you can read this as either physical or platonic love. I'll leave it up to you how you read Calamus in the Calamus section. What are the primary messages here at 2a? Well, obviously he's going to argue that the heart of any city is the lovers, not the buildings, not the construction, not the stuff that provides one with entertainment, but rather the genuine, the real lovers. Right? Again in 2b, well, we mentioned it, that repetition of the not or the nor, 4 of the nots, 3 of the nors, right? At 3a, I want to remind you of our study of Sandburg's Chicago, the City of Broad Shoulders. We've mentioned that in our lectures already. We've given lectures on Sandburg. And I think that Sandburg his Chicago and City of Orgies can easily be read as companion texts. Obviously, I mentioned Brooklyn Ferry and the celebration of the city. Song of Myself, passage 24, we talked about. And then, of course, City of Ships from the Drum Taps section, which we'll get to later. Finally, at 3b, to own a poem like this, it's not that difficult to ask, what is for you your favorite city? And is it true that whatever that favorite city is, the thing you love the most about it is the availability of those who you can enjoy while you're there in the city? Or, for example, is it just the architecture, or is it some combination of the two? Well, Whitman, the great lover of the urbane, as well as, of course, the countryside. Thank you.